Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whenever you may be tuning in to the Growing Our Future podcast. Man, we just love bringing these podcasts to listeners and bringing on subject matter experts that are so willing to share their experiences, their insights, and their expertise. Today is no different. We are honored today to have Cy Cook with the Texas Farm Bureau. He's the executive director and COO, and I've had the pleasure of knowing Cy for a few years, and it's been awesome to watch his career, his professional career blossom, and just be around and catch some of that passion that he has for agriculture and young people. It's contagious. So y'all are about to get to experience that. Cy, thank you for joining us today.
Aaron, it's a pleasure to be here, and it's a pleasure to get to do this with you. As you said, we've worked so many years together, and I've got to put it back at you. I've enjoyed your enthusiasm in the areas that you represented. It's always fun to work with somebody like you. So I look forward to our conversation.
Well, that feeling is mutual. We're going to talk about a lot of things, Cy. One of those things is we do talk about the essence of leadership. And the essence of leadership is to plant trees under whose shade you may never sit. And you've done a lot of good work at the Texas Farm Bureau. And I hope I've contributed to the Texas FFA. And we're not done yet. So we're going to talk about some of that today, and hopefully we'll plant some more seeds of greatness today. All right, to get started, every podcast, we start with the same question. Cy, what are you grateful for today?
You know, I'm just grateful for the opportunity to get up and to try to improve the industry. Every day you get up, it gives you an opportunity to interact with folks. I'm 62 years old. I'm healthy. I've got a job that I love. I'm awed every time that I drive up to this building here in Waco, Texas, to the Texas Farm Bureau. It doesn't belong to me. It belongs to the members of Texas Farm Bureau. But I'm proud to come here. So I appreciate the opportunity to contribute every day. That's what I'm grateful for every day I come here. Now, different days, I'm grateful for different things, but that's one thing that is always consistent, the chance to make a difference every day.
That's good. That's really good, by the way. I was talking to a group the other day, and I didn't say it that way, but I said it this way. I said, listen, don't ever not appreciate your job. Because at the end of every month, if I do it right, at the end of every month, I might just have a little bit left over. And if I do, I might be able to help somebody else that might need a little bit of help. That's the beauty of a job. A job allows you, and I think that's in our FFA opening ceremonies. I think they said that George Washington was better able to serve his country because he was financially independent.
I've heard that somewhere, yes.
So I don't know, maybe you and I, we've heard that line before. All right, very good. Well, Cy, you're the executive director, the COO. I know you didn't just fall into that chair. I knew that there's a path that puts you into that chair. So why don't you take us back? And I know that you were a former FFA member, and I want to talk about that probably. I want to unpack that a little bit more, but go ahead and reach back and kind of take us through your FFA journey through college and then this career that you found at the Texas Farm Bureau.
Sure. I started out, I'm just a ranch kid from South Texas. My family was involved in agriculture and ranching from little on. When I was in high school, one of the things that I did do was become involved in FFA. And we'll talk a little bit about those influences. I learned a lot of lessons in FFA, but my involvement in agriculture allowed me to go to school. I have a degree in agriculture education, by the way. And then I went back to the ranch and intended to be self-employed. And so many times when you get out of college, you don't always end up where you think you're going. So I ranched for a while, and a good friend of mine said, hey, you need to become involved in a volunteer organization. You need to be involved in Farm Bureau. Why don't you serve on the board of directors here in your hometown? And I thought to myself, okay, I need to give back. I was in college, but I need to give back to the community that I'm moving back to. And I think that's an important point here, Aaron. No matter what age you are, you need to think about how you can give back. So many young people think, well, I'll do that later on in life. But let me tell you, when you start giving back immediately, you get a lot in return for it. I want to play up on that then. So I decided to give a little back to the agriculture community by volunteering my time in the Farm Bureau. I became a board member there. I became County Farm Bureau president. And then not long after that, the state organization came to me and said, hey, we'd like for you to go to work for us down here in the field. So I was able to serve about 25 counties down there in the area where I lived for about 7 years. I learned a lot about ag producers. I learned a lot about agriculture. I learned a lot about Farm Bureau there. And then the state office approached me about moving to Waco. And my wife and I thought about it long and hard. We prayed about it long and hard. And we made the decision to rip our lives up, to take a chance and move away from her entire family. My entire family lived in our hometown there where I was working. And we decided to take an opportunity. And that's another lesson that I want to impart here. Take that chance. You miss 100% of the shots you never take. So we decided to take that chance and move 175 miles away from our family and home and work for this organization. During the course of the next 20 years, I was able to do a lot of things here at Farm Bureau. I had positions that touched mostly every aspect of our organization. So I got a lot of experience. Mm-hmm. Then in about 2016, the job of executive director came open. And again, I took another chance. I prayed about it. I thought about it. I consulted with my wife. We decided, yep, put your name in the hat for that. And fortunately, my background, my experience, I know it wasn't my good look and charm, my good looks and charm that got me this job, but the board of directors chose to take a chance on me and make me executive director. So that's my journey. During that point in time, during the course of all this, I continued with a ranching operation. It was in my family and my blood. It's one that I built by myself, and I always ranch. So folks know that I understand production agriculture, which I think is critically important in this position. Our volunteer leaders need to know that you understand what they do for a living. You need to understand the challenges that they face. So hopefully my experience in the organization and my experience in agriculture make me competent to hold this position. And the last thing that I'll tell you is that I look at my position not as something that I own. And I think everybody with a job, Aaron, you and I included, need to look at our jobs as something that we don't own. We rent these jobs, and the rent is due every day. I've got to produce every day. I've got to prove my work every day. And that's the way that I approach this job, even at this point in my career and at this level. So anyway, that's a little bit of the journey.
That's good stuff. That's on a lot of levels. There's a lot of wisdom in that. The kids, I was talking to the kids at the state leadership conference this year, and I asked them to tell me about their business. And they looked at me and they said, we don't have a business. I said, oh yeah, you do. You're it. I said, what time's your business open in the morning? How late's it? What kind of customer service do you deliver?
Exactly.
Can you sell me your business? Do you have good customer service? Can you communicate well? It's exactly what you said. The rent is due every single day. That's awesome. So, Cy, you did something a couple of years ago, and I want to share this with everybody, because a lot of times you do things and you might not know that people are really watching everything that you do, but we are. And there's an old saying that says, when your values are clear, your choices are easy. When your values are clear, your choices are easy. And y'all were having a Texas Farm Bureau convention. And I understand that Cy had this idea of everybody bring your ag jacket. Tell us about that, Cy, because I thought that was pretty neat.
Well, one thing that I appreciate about FFA is that while you really value individualism, individual accomplishment and that type of thing, you also value tradition. And that ag jacket, that FFA jacket, is something that everybody recognizes. It's a symbol. And when you put that jacket on, people expect certain things of you. And I thought it'd be a good idea. We have so many people that got a lot of their background and leadership experiences through FFA. And I knew those jackets, including mine, were still in that closet. So I encouraged them to bring their jacket most of them didn't fit, I got to tell you. And I challenge anybody that's been out of FFA for 10 years to put that jacket on.
I saw that.
It usually does not fit.
Yeah.
But it was really a great experience. Folks reminisced. And again, it brings everybody back together. And it recognized, here's what I got from FFA, from that experience. And Aaron, you know that we support FFA. We've got several programs that I'm sure we're going to talk about. But there are things that FFA teaches at a young age that are invaluable. And it's never bad to go back and revisit those things and reinforce that.
Well, you're absolutely right. And that's why I wanted to bring that up. I appreciate your innovativeness. I appreciate your perspective looking backward, but more importantly, look where we're at today, standing on the shoulders of the people that went before us that also came from that blue and gold. And, I'm a fan of the jacket. I always tell people, when you put that jacket on and zip it up, you look like everybody else. Nobody knows your background, your family situation, your finances, your academics. You look just like everybody else. It means you got the same opportunity as everybody else. Our job, and you know this, our job as adults, our job is to create opportunities. That's our job. You're trying to create opportunities for your members. We're trying to create opportunities for our members, for our teachers. Their responsibility is to determine the outcome. And that's what we're trying to equip them to do.
Let me play that up a little bit, Aaron, and talk about that jacket. While that jacket, when you're wearing it, symbolizes some of your beliefs, it's when you take that jacket off that it really comes into play. So here's a couple of things that I believe. I wear a wedding ring, but I should not have to wear that ring for folks to know that guy's married. I went to college. I shouldn't have to wear a college ring for folks to know that I have some level of education. When you take that jacket off, folks ought to be able to recognize, there's something different about that person, that girl or that guy. They've been through something different. They have a demeanor. They have an air about them that there's something different. And you can almost spot that. Folks that have been through FFA, and especially those that have taken the leadership aspect of it seriously, it shows whether they're wearing that jacket or not. So the symbolism is fine, but you want folks to be able to recognize those things without those symbols. They need to look at you and say, yep, that person's been through FFA, or that person is married, or that person is educated, or whatever. That's so important. And that's what we're aiming for there.
So just a little sidebar here. There are over 3,000 high schools in the state of Texas. So I ask the kids all the time, I said, how many of those high schools are going to have graduating classes? Every one of them. Every one of them. Kids are going to come out, they're going to be looking for a job, a scholarship, an opportunity. What separates you from the competition? What's your competitive edge? And it's exactly what you just said. I believe that if we do FFA right, they come out with a competitive edge that can give them a leg up, an opportunity that their peers may not be able to accomplish. That jacket's a game changer.
It is. I can't tell you how many times I've sat in on an interview. Folks don't wear their blue jacket in here when they interview. Mm-hmm. But as that interview progresses, and I begin to be impressed on how somebody presents themselves, from the handshake to the eye contact to the demeanor that they interview, eventually it probably does come out. Hey, were you involved in FFA in high school? And I got to tell you, more times than not, that's an absolute. Yep, sure was. So it shows.
We talked before we came on the podcast. We were talking, I was sharing with you about one of our board members, Cleo Franklin. And Cleo's grandfather told him something one time, and you're going to like this. He told Cleo, he said, Cleo, he said, don't ever speak on the obvious. He said, game recognizes game. And that's exactly what you just said. If you do it right, and those values are clear, and your choices are easy, and you're living the nobility that we were created to live, it speaks for itself. And doesn't mean you don't still have to try, and it doesn't mean you don't have work to do. Like you said, the rent's due every day, but that can become a drive that makes life a purpose-driven life?
Aaron, we kind of live in a world that accepts mediocrity now. And I guess what we want to talk about today is how do you make yourself exceptional? And, I've got a lot of nieces and nephews, and that's one of the things that I try to impress upon them. Make yourself recognizable because you're exceptional. Use manners, develop a work ethic that sets you above others, where folks look at you when you walk in a room and you shake somebody's hand and you use a politeness about you. That's kind of exceptional these days because most folks don't do that anymore. That's what it's all about. It's about separating yourself from the herd. It doesn't mean you're better than everybody else. It just means you're trying harder. And that's one thing I got to tell you that an employer looks for. How hard are you going to try? Are you really going to be passionate about what we're hiring you to do and want to excel? Or are you trying to see how little you can do and how much you can get for it? And that's not a way to success. So that's another thing that I think FFA does so well. It teaches you how to be exceptional instead of mediocre.
One of the podcasts that we've done that's been very favorable was on how to get a job, keep a job, and get promoted in a job. And almost everything that you just said verbatim is what that HR director covered. And that's coming from the person that actually does, like we're talking about, the hiring and the firing and the promoting, and it's everything that you just said. That's good stuff. Let's talk about Texas Farm Bureau. What opportunities are there at the Texas Farm Bureau for young people and teachers that might be looking to get involved? What are some challenges that we're looking at in the world of Texas agriculture? What can you share with us?
Well, let's talk about Texas agriculture. This is first and foremost an agricultural organization. It was designed to address the problems of the folks that produce the food and fiber. Profitability is always the major issue with production agriculture. We're in a time where we're seeing unprecedented inflation. We have a drought going on here in Texas. So profitability is the toughest thing in the world. Whenever you're looking for a career to go into, that's one of the things you've got to consider. Our farm population is getting older. Farming is a risky business, and it's tough. Young people really have to want to do it. They have to have a passion for it to get into that business. And fortunately, we do have a lot of young people that want to do just that. But the challenges are even more than they used to be. So many times, what goes on outside of the farm gate has as much to do with what goes on in your operation and inside your farm or ranch as far as profitability. And once again, we're going back to broadening your horizons and being exceptional. You can be the best ag producer in the world. You can be the best technical farmer or rancher in the world. But if you're not good at the things that happen outside your farm gate, you still may not be able to make a living. And by that, we're talking about regulatory issues. We're talking about politics. We're talking about finance. We're talking about the aspects of business. And again, those folks that spend the time and effort to study those things and become proficient at those things have a better chance of success. Those are things that you learn in FFA as well. You learn all those things. One of the challenges that we face, and I'll talk just a minute about our youth opportunities, is cutting through all the noise. With social media now, there's so many ways that everybody gets flooded with messages. We've got to cut through the noise and make folks realize, look, even though you're not involved in agriculture personally, you really are, because you eat, you're clothed every day, and here's why agriculture is important to you. So we've got to cut through the noise to deliver that message. As far as opportunities in Farm Bureau for young people, we have such an array of scholarships. Education is important, and many people don't even realize the number of scholarships that we offer. Together, Texas Farm Bureau and our county farm bureaus, there are 205 county farm bureaus. There's like $750,000 of scholarships that are available for the taking. All you got to do is apply. and we provide those scholarships. County Farm Bureaus provide their own scholarship opportunities as well. Sometimes those go unnoticed. From an ag science teacher standpoint, we have, as I said, 205 county farm bureaus across the state of Texas. Those county farm bureaus have a volunteer board of directors comprised of ag producers. There's a budget in every one of those county farm bureaus to promote agriculture. And if an ag science teacher will get to know those county farm bureau board members, an opportunity will be provided. We have garden grant programs. We help with local stock shows. I can't tell you the amount of money that these county farm bureaus spend at local stock shows, but there are also other activities that are available if an ag science teacher is interested in that. So one of our goals that Aaron, you and I have talked about is putting those together, putting that ag science teacher together with that county farm bureau leadership. And then if you and I can do that, it'll just take off. They'll handle the rest. So those are some of the opportunities and challenges that we have.
Let's I want to make sure we revisit these, and we're going to put the link to the Texas Farm Bureau on this podcast here. But for students, you've got scholarship opportunities. They've also got a plethora of leadership development opportunities. The other thing that the Texas Farm Bureau does that I really like, by the way, because I'm a firm believer, go back to what we've said at the very beginning, I'm going to say it before we close today. If you want to know what the future is, grow it. So if you want to know what future agriculturalists look like, we better start planting those seeds now. There is nobody that goes into an elementary school that is more cool than a high school kid. And if we could get more high school kids to go volunteer in an elementary school and say, I want to go in there and talk about agriculture. I want to talk about where food comes from. And the Farm Bureau has incredible assets to do that, incredible assets. Take those assets, go into those elementary schools. You will plant seeds where one day the kid's going to say, well, I think I want to take that ag class because I remember that high school. I remember when that kid came to my school and what he or she said. I want to go try that. I think of Temple Grandin. I mean, look at the incredible influence that Temple Grandin has had on American agriculture. And it all started because she was a city kid exposed to agriculture and she found a career. That's the reason I appreciate the Texas Farm Bureau. When you look at the footprint of the Texas Farm Bureau and you look at the footprint of Texas Ag Science Education and the FFA, that's the beauty of the possibilities of the collaboration. Because of all of the opportunities for youth leadership development, adult leadership development, collaborations on advocacy for agriculture, collaboration for community service. I mean, the list goes on. And I think that is something that I'm appreciative of. Number one, Si, we are appreciative that not only do you guys give support to the Texas FFA, but you're always willing to say, let us share our assets. Let us share what opportunities we have. We bring the teachers there on the lead trip, never fails. Teachers walk away saying, I had no idea that these programs existed. Well, what do? They go back into their respective areas across the state of Texas and they tell their peers, oh, by the way, did you know this opportunity exists for leadership development, for a chance for collaboration? That's the beauty of two great brands coming together. And the Texas Farm Bureau is an iconic brand in the state of Texas. It's a great brand. And I think the Texas FFA is a great brand as well. And I know y'all don't just work with us. I know that you also work with the 4-H and FCCLA and other, like you said, all the way down to the county level. But to me, that's a compliment too to the Texas Farm Bureau. You're a great community partner and you see that community responsibility. And I hope that our students and teachers recognize that as well.
Well, one of the things that you said, Aaron, I want to repeat. You said a lot of these teachers will come into this our facility here and hear what we have to say in this. I never knew. That's our challenge. We have so many people that, well, I never knew that. We've got to get that message out. We've got to cut through the noise because it's a shame to have these opportunities and that we do and that they're not fully realized. They're not fully utilized. That's one thing that we try to do every day. We try to figure out how do we get this message out?
Well, that's why I appreciate you coming on the podcast, because number one, I wanted you to share your personal testimony. But number two, I hope this is another portal that we can use to help teachers and everybody understand the scope and that our efforts are intentional. That's the thing, Si. You talked about you and I going back a few years. I watched you be very intentional about the leadership development of your young farmers programs and the programs that you were developed. We're doing the same thing with Texas FFA. We're being very intentional about the leadership development offerings that we're trying to provide. And when you bring those two together, I kind of like the odds of something good coming out of that.
Absolutely.
So that's good stuff. All right, Si, tell me, what if you were going to tell an FFA kid today, a young person, leadership training, leadership skills, what would be 3 skills you'd tell them, hey, listen, you need to try to practice these 3?
There's a bunch. There's so many leadership skills. First of all, stepping out and even attempting leadership development, that's the first step. Some folks are not interested in doing that. You got to get out of your comfort zone. It's going to make you uncomfortable. First of all, you got to get over that. But I guess as far as top leadership skills, first of all, you've got to develop communication skills, both verbal and written. You may be the most intelligent person in the world, but if you can't communicate that, you can't share that intelligence. So learn how to speak, learn how to write. You may not like your English teacher right now, but they're going to be your best friend later on in life. You have to learn to express yourself and communicate your thoughts and into action. So communication skills has to be one of the most important things if you're going to be a leader. I'm going to say probably another very important skill is you got to learn to listen. And you got to learn to listen to understand and not to reply. So many people listen and they're already thinking, now, what am I going to say to this? How am I going to reply? If you're going to be a leader, you need to listen to understand. You need to hear what somebody's telling you. You need to hear the facts. You need to hear information so that you understand that. Another skill that you have to develop is how to make a decision. You need to understand, how do I make a decision? How do I collect facts? And how do I make hopefully the right decision? And they're not going to all be right, but you are going to have to learn how to make that decision. And I guess I'm going to do a little funny story. I noticed today driving to work, you're going to see several squirrels on the road in my neighborhood. They're going to be squashed. So a squirrel does not get squashed because it lacks skills, because it's not quick, because it's not smart. It gets squashed because it can't make a decision. Which way am I going to go? Which way am I going to go? And it ends up being squashed. And that happens to people. If you can't make a decision, you're going to get squashed. So learn some decision-making skills. And Aaron, I'm going to end probably with a number 4. You asked for maybe 3 or so, but I'm going to end with number 4. And it's not so much a skill that you have to learn, but it's a characteristic. If you're really going to be a leader, you need to develop a servant's heart. Okay. So I'm here. I'm the lead staff person here at Texas Farm Bureau. But I fully understood that when I assumed that position, never before in my career have I been a servant to more people than I am now. Every day I'm a servant to the employees. I'm a servant to the board of directors. I'm a servant to the membership. I answer to them, and it's my job to serve them every day and to look out for their best interest. So if you're going to be a leader, you need to learn to be a servant. And again, that's not really a skill that you learn. That's something that's a characteristic. But we've got a lot of folks now that don't seek leadership roles to be servants. They seek them for a different reason. And most of the time when you do that, you're not going to see fulfillment. You're not going to get that good feeling. You're not going to accomplish a lot of goals. If it's self-serving, it's just not going to work. That's not a skill. That's a characteristic.
Well, I like it, by the way. I think it's a core value. And, one of the questions when I ask people, when I interview people, everybody that's watched me ever interview, they know that I'm getting the last question. And the last question I like to ask is give me the why. Tell me why you want the job. because what I want to drill down is I want to get to exactly what you just said. I want to know that core value, what drives them. And I believe exactly what you just said. You know, if you go through the FFA experience and your FFA experience is only buy my fruit, buy my sausage, buy my animal, give me that scholarship, buy my stock show hat. If that's all you do and you go through 4 years of it, guess what? You're going to take for 4 years. And you might get to college and you might get to take for another 3 to 4, but it's going to be a lot harder to take once you get beyond that college experience and that when you start that career path. But if y'all do what Mr. Cook just said and you learn to serve, you can serve needs in your community today. You can serve those needs in the community when you're in college, and you can serve those needs in your community for the rest of your life. And when you bring great brands like the Texas Farm Bureau or the Texas FFA alongside of your servant heart, that is living the testimony and living the brands that I know Si and I both want to see our organizations tied to. They say there are 4 T's of philanthropy. Philanthropy is giving of time, talents, treasure, or testimony. Time, talent, treasure, or testimony. And Si, one of the reasons that I was excited to have you on this podcast is because you represent all 4 of those buckets of philanthropy. And there are people that come into your organization. There are people that come into ours. They don't have anything but some time. There are other people that say, you know, I don't have a lot of time, but let me share some of my talent with you. Here's what I'm good at. You got some people that they can write checks and they say, hey, listen, I don't have time to do any of that stuff, but let me help you. And then you have people that come along and say, you know what? Let me testify. Let me stand up and talk to my peers about what you do. Texas Farm Bureau is one of those unique organizations that brings all 4 components to the Texas FFA. And we appreciate the fact that you do that.
Thanks for that.
That's good stuff. All right, Si, is there anything else you want to cover? Anything else you want to share with our teachers and students? We're going to give them links. We're going to try to keep them connected, but go ahead.
You know, I'm going to suggest that y'all take a look at the Farm Bureau website. Again, there's a lot of information on there, but it represents opportunities. You'll find information there about our scholarships, about our student success series, about our teacher assets, ag in the classroom. So take a look at it. And I think that once again, Aaron, you'll find things that, man, I didn't know that. I guess one of the last things, you know, you kind of try to come up in your career with some great truths, some things that nobody can argue with. And I guess I'll tell you this, and it's one rule that I found is you can't argue with, whether you're an ag science teacher, whether you're a student, an FFA student, whether you're a professional. I mean, this rule really is something you can't argue with. One of the things that I think you really have to do is you got to figure out what it is that you truly want. What is it that you truly want? Mm-hmm. And then you got to figure out what you're willing to give up to get it. There's no variation in that rule. You're not going to be a fantastic athlete without giving up something. You're going to have to give up your time, your sweat. You're going to have to practice. You can't be successful financially unless you study and you give up your time and you work hard. You can't be a good teacher unless you give up some things. And by the way, I want to say a word to these ag science teachers. I'm married to a retired teacher. She taught for 27 years, and I will never be as good at my job as she was at hers. She influenced. We still run into students. Now they're having kids. We still run into students that will stop us on the streets that my wife runs into, and they will say, Miss Cook, you changed my life. You're the reason I'm where I am today. That's where you're at as an ag science teacher. Aaron mentioned that I was in FFA, and I had some lessons learned from my ag science teacher that have stuck with me to this day. That's the position that you're in. You're in a position to change lives and to make a difference. And every day you go to work, you need to remember that, whether you're in a bad mood, whether you feel like it or not. The rent is due on your job as an ag science teacher every day, but you have that opportunity to make a difference, and you never know how or when you're going to do that. So take that seriously, appreciate that opportunity, and take advantage of that.
So at the end of the day, things that you're talking about, and we're talking about teachers and you as an organizational leader, myself, it reminds me of when my oldest son, Chandler, had me come and speak to his 4th grade class. And it was bring your daddy to school day. What does your daddy do? And I'm thinking, how in the world am I going to explain to 4th graders what I do? I'm live in a town with NATO pilots and doctors and lawyers and policemen. And then we have Chandler's daddy. He's a professional fundraiser. He's a beggar for a living. How do you explain? And I remember I went up on the board and I drew a little bitty door. And I asked the kids, I said, how many of you could get through that door? And they said, no, sir. And then I drew a really big door. And I said, now, how many of y'all could get through that door? And they said, yes, sir. I said, that's what I do. I make doors bigger. And so I think that's what the Texas Farm Bureau is doing. I think that y'all coming alongside of what we're attempting to do, and we're collaborating to help y'all do the things that y'all are doing. I think what we're doing is we're making those doors of opportunity bigger for more of your county members to get through those doors, for more of our kids and teachers to get through those doors. We're not going to get them all through there, but our job is to make that door bigger so more of them have an opportunity. And I just want to tell you, I think we're doing that.
Appreciate that. Aaron, it's a pleasure working with you. I appreciate the opportunity so much. And, we'll have a conversation after this is over with. We stay in touch during the course of the year. But thank you for your efforts, making that door bigger. Thank you for the opportunity to explain just a little bit about this organization that I'm so proud to represent.
Get one more question, Si. There's always one last question. That's the fun question. What's the best concert you've ever been to?
The best concert I've been to? Hey, I'm going to tell you, 2 come to mind. So I got to see ZZ Top in LaGrange, Texas, which is the only time in the history of the world that they ever played that song in LaGrange.
Wow.
I saw it Labor Day weekend, got home at 3:30 a.m. by the time we got out of the Fayette County Fairgrounds on the school buses that they brought us in on. So that was an awesome concert. All the members of ZZ Top are no longer alive, so I got to see that.
Wow.
And another concert I got to see Elton John at the American Airlines Center there in Dallas. And that was a pretty awesome concert too. So those are the 2 that come to mind.
Those are big brands.
I understand he's doing his last American tour right now, Elton John.
Yeah.
Let me tell you what I found out about that concert. So I went to that concert and I said, these people are mannerly and they're more genteel. There's no sense of urgency there because they're all older people at that concert. And it was a different setting, but those are the 2 that come to mind.
I'm not going to tell you some recent concerts I've been to. Let's just say that profile worked. What you just said worked. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank y'all for joining us for the Growing Our Future podcast. Again, it is always a pleasure to have great presenters, great subject matter experts. Today was no different. You've got a gentleman here that is a leader in Texas agriculture. He's a leader that came from the ranks of ag science education in the FFA, and he's living his brand and he's paying it forward. And not just him, but the organization. And they do it because it's what they believe. I like to always end by saying, if you want to know what the future is, grow it. If you want to know what the future of the state and the country is, grow it. Abraham Lincoln said that the philosophy of the schoolroom in one generation will be the philosophy of government in the next. Days like today, podcasts like today, are an opportunity to take the seeds of greatness that Si and Texas Farm Bureau shares with us, plant those seeds, and let's make our communities, Texas, and this country a better place. Until we see you down the road, everybody be safe, continue to make a positive difference, live your brand, and plant trees under whose shade you may never sit. Si, thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Adios.